today. Are you gonna do the video, Chewy? Yes, I'm gonna do the whole video. Wow. You're over it already? Yes, I'm over it already. So today we are going to look at a couple of things that are actually more expensive in Europe than they are in the USA. Now this might come as a surprise to you because generally speaking, most of us know that the cost of living in the USA is higher than in Europe. And when I say that, it's important to note that I am talking about overall in general. So there are poor areas, wealthy areas of Europe and the USA, and the disparity between the cost of living in those is massive. And again, on a personal level, the parts of the USA that I have seen are mostly cities. However, when I was making up the numbers of this list, I took the entire Europe and USA into account. So when we're talking averages, that's what I'm bringing in. Gosh, that was a lot of technical stuff getting it out of the way, but it's important, you know? Careful now, don't overextend your brain head. I mean, it's common sense that the cost of living in Ireland or Finland is going to be more expensive than it is in the Ukraine or in Moldova, for example. But it's just worth putting it out there. We're bringing in the wealthiest and the poorest and finding an average. So enough blah blah blahing, let's get on with the list. The first thing should not come as a shock to you. You've probably heard about it. It's the cost of gasoline. We call it petrol. The price of petrol / gasoline is extortionate in Europe right now, and it is in part thanks to all the awful things going on in Europe right now. I know in the USA you guys measure stuff in gallons, so let me do that and also give you the numbers in dollars. So in the USA, a gallon will cost you about $3 to $4. Whereas in Europe, a gallon could cost you $6 to $8. I've actually heard it being more expensive, but again, we're talking averages. It is the number one thing my homies complain about. As a non-driver, I get to avoid this amount of money, although it does affect the cost of like Ubers and Lyfts and Bolts. But filling up your car in Europe is a massive expense. Is it any wonder some of us have chosen just to do the taxi thing? The next thing is iPhones and all Apple technology. It is way cheaper in the USA than it is in Europe. The latest iPhone is the iPhone 15 Pro, I believe. And in the USA, that could set you back $999 at just a basic cost, like if you're not buying it with a phone plan or anything. The same phone in Europe starts from $1,347. However, and we do love a however, phone plans in Europe are way cheaper than in the USA. Right now, I am paying €35 a month. I think the dollar and the euro are about the same right now. Yeah, $35 is €32, so roughly the same. And I would say it's certainly not the cheapest phone plan. Like my mom is on a phone plan that's only €8 a month. And she gets, I think, 2 gigs of data, which she doesn't use a whole lot of data. I need a lot of data. But she gets all her calls for free. And as I understand it, that's an unfathomably cheap amount compared to what you guys pay in the USA. Let me know below in comments what your phone bill is every month. I'm interested to hear. The next thing, and this comes with a little bit of a caveat because it definitely does vary a lot in Europe. So I'm gonna put it with an asterisk. It's alcohol. And this is definitely where my subjective experience comes into things. So on this one, I'm talking about Northern Western Europe versus the parts of the USA that I have seen. A can of beer in the USA in a supermarket can be anything from $1 to $3 for a domestic beer. Craft beers obviously run up higher. In Europe, the disparity is much wider and it can go from 75 cents to $4.50. Countries such as Norway, Switzerland, and Ireland have much higher prices for the cost of alcohol because we have huge taxes on the consumption of alcohol. It might be a good thing they put that on in Ireland, but I don't think it stopped the drinking culture a hell of a lot. But alcohol in Ireland is expensive. But comparatively, the cost of alcohol in Spain, for example, you could get a glass of wine in more regional parts for about €2. I'm not a big drinker myself, but I have noticed that the cost of alcohol there is a lot cheaper. I even remember in Vegas, the cost of cocktails was really expensive, I thought, which was like $18 to $20 for one cocktail. But that's Vegas, so, you know, it's Vegas.
Ah, damn it, Vegas!
Next up, when we are talking about your popular chain coffee places. So your Starbucks, I can't remember the name of another coffee place right now. Let's just go with Starbucks. A Starbucks Grande Latte in the USA will cost you approximately $3.65 to $4.15 depending on the taxes and charges in the state that you're in. In Europe, the VAT and operating costs are much higher for a place like Starbucks. So a Grande Latte will typically set you back $3.80 to $4.90. That's a good chunk if you're having that every day, which I don't recommend. And remember, that's an average. We're talking even higher than that in capital cities. Needless to say, you are better off going to a local cafe if you're visiting Europe, and honestly, probably the coffee will be better quality. The next one is a huge one, and probably the thing that I notice the most when I'm visiting the USA. The cost of clothes there is way cheaper typically. And there are several reasons for this, but perhaps the most interesting one was that a lot of brands found that when selling in Europe, if they tried to sell the clothes for cheaper, they just weren't selling. Whereas when they put a higher price tag on it, for example, the brand Levi's, they tried selling jeans in Europe for the same price as they were selling them in the USA. They found that people just weren't buying them until they put a higher price tag on them. So now you buy a pair of Levi jeans for $90 here, whereas in the USA, you can get them much cheaper. I definitely find this with a lot of the popular stores. I'm usually shocked at how cheap you can get like a t-shirt or a jacket for there. But yeah, your cost of clothes is much cheaper because the snobby European element apparently wanted to Emperor's New Clothes it and be like, we're paying more, so they're better quality. But they're not necessarily. The next thing that always blows my mind in particular is the cost of tech. Now, we touched on this with Apple specifically, but actually it goes much further beyond Apple. Microphones, lenses, headphones, they are all way cheaper to buy in the USA. And part of this could be down to the fact that their home bases are actually in the USA. However, we all know that a lot of products aren't necessarily made in the USA. A lot be made in China, and we're still paying a lot more for them in Europe. But it's still super annoying when you just want to buy a microphone and it's way cheaper in the USA. It annoys me mostly when I go on a website like Amazon and you're getting a product for maybe $50 cheaper there than when I go onto the European version of the site. And I'm like, they're probably all coming from the same warehouse. And penultimately, I know y'all love that word as much as I do. Oh, speaking of words, thank you so much to my Patreon and YouTube channel member community for making this video possible. If you want more behind the scenes videos of me and Chewy, or you want to check out the new merch store, we finally have it linked under the videos right now. You should see pictures there. And you want to support the channel? You can do so and wear a cool hoodie or a cup or a blanket. Anyway, this next one does not affect me at all, but I know it's a big thing for other people. It's cigarettes. So I'm a non-smoker. But under investigation, I found the cost of cigarettes has a huge disparity between states as well as countries in Europe, as in state to state and country to country. However, the average cost in the USA is significantly cheaper than it is in most of Europe. The average cost of a packet of cigarettes in the USA is typically $6 to $8. You will pay more in a city. Apparently, Missouri has the cheapest cigarettes at $5 a pack. I think when I was researching this, I went by a 20 pack, but if you're a smoker, maybe you could correct me in the comments. However, in the UK and Ireland, the average pack of cigarettes will set you back about $12. And the same is true thereabouts for countries like France and Sweden, where a pack will cost you about $10. The reason for this is down to a lot of public health policies in countries. Just like with alcohol, they put a huge fee on goods like cigarettes, alcohol. So at a minimum, you're already paying €3 to €4 before you've ever bought the cigarettes. Does it work? I don't know. All I know is vaping has come back into fashion, and that skipped a whole generation, but now it's back and the young'uns are vaping. And finally, the number one thing is something I can absolutely speak on. It's ice cream. I am shocked at how cheap ice cream is in the USA. Now, I'm not talking gelato or anything fancy schmancy like that you'd find in Italy or even like a nice gelato place in Spain. I'm talking generic brands. Magnum, Haagen-Dazs, Ben & Jerry's, way cheaper in the USA. And this upsets me greatly. I love ice cream. Not a week will go by where I don't have at least one ice cream. And I don't care if it's cold, Sheila. I want ice cream. It really doesn't bother me if it's cold. The ice cream should be cold. My body temperature, I can put on a jumper. This is me comparing the cost of Haagen-Dazs in a supermarket in the USA versus in Europe. So here I am in a supermarket in the USA, and a tub of Haagen-Dazs is approximately $6.29, whereas in Europe it is €7.35, which is closer to $8. I actually have a whole video on the cost of stuff in supermarkets. If you want me to do a comparison for you, let me know below in comments. Otherwise, that's it for today. See you guys on the other side. Bye. Buddy, do you want to go get a treat?